with an essentially unchanged schedule, even though the world is being destroyed from within. This is Tell It Someone. First question is from the Naked Wombat. How many stirs of spaghetti on the stove does it take for Scott Morrison to formulate a pandemic position? Well, of course, Scott Morrison is incapable of forming any clear position that is not directly directed by Rupert Murdoch or Gina Reinhart or other billionaire members of the IPA. So, what we've got is basically completely directionless, directionless, except for Victorian Premier Dan Andrews, who's kind of like, you know, that nerd. Every nerd. He's basically like every nerd, and he's somehow, even though he's a nerd, he became our Premier of Victoria, which is, you know, the state that I'm in at the moment, and he's actually, you know, managing things quite well. So if we just ignore the rest of Australia, we're doing fine. Next question is from the Phoenix Knight. Has the drop bear population plummeted as a result of the fires? If not, then without the usual influx of tourists, are they starting to ambush native Australians out of desperation? Well, of course, that's what drop bears do. They kind of plummet from trees onto the heads of gullible tourists. Look, they had been... There was the same number of drop bear attacks as there were before, except this time they were on fire, which is somehow slightly better than normal drop bears, because at least you die quicker. That's all I'm saying. So now that the flaming drop bears are no longer flaming and there's no longer any tourists, then, you know, we've just got to make up for that, you know, that lack of drop bear feeding. Most of us are not going outside at the moment. I mean, the cat is outside, but she can handle herself. In the case of drop bears, you know, she's quite capable of handling herself with regard to drop bears. But that being said, you've still got to watch out. They have started flying. They do evolve very quickly. So you've just got to watch out for the flying, plummeting, burning drop bears. And it's a serious problem, but not as serious as the one that potentially could kill millions of people. Apparently people but matter more at some point. Yeehaw Uramo asks, is there any coronavirus cases in your area? Well, there's none in my area because this is my area. It's a large hatchback, so I don't think there are any coronavirus. Well, it's asymptomatic in the beginning, and I don't think I have any coronavirus on me. I don't even have any corona beers, so no, there aren't any coronaviruses that I know of. Next question is from Matt Yabs. I have invented a new drinking game. Starting with episode 1 of Tell It Someone, I suggest that every time you mention the words next question, you must take a shot. First person to make it to the end of the episode 462 wins the internet. My question is, can you say next question repeatedly at the end of the video just to be a proper asshole? Well, I could if you really want to do that drinking game, then yes, you can. You must be really, really bored and have a really lot of alcohol, because I don't know how else to say, to introduce what is coming next other than saying next question. Let's try it with Kate Van. How did the cat become yours, or vice versa? Well, okay. I usually leave the window open to let the cat in late at night, and because I prefer fresh air when I'm sleeping. Because I had a cat. I had a cat a couple of years ago. So anyway, I was sleeping and I woke up and the cat was on my pillow. The cat wasn't my cat. My cat was not on my bed. My cat doesn't sleep on my bed. Anyway, that was the previous cat. This had happened 6 times in a row, and we found out where the cat lives, and we started walking her back home. Anyway, when we started walking her back home, we take her home and we put her at the door, and she'd run inside to her where her home was. And when I got home from taking her home, she was already on my bed before I got there. So, this happened for about 6 months. My father had been in hospital for 3 of those months, but still, she kept on coming back and coming back. And eventually the actual owners of her said, you better take her. She probably prefers your place better. And so she kept on sleeping on my pillow next to my head. And then my cat died because he was 17-year-old and had cancer. So now I have a cat, and it's just the same cat, only fluffier, because the previous cat was, just a short-haired one. Now it's a long-haired grey cat. I hope this helps. Next question is from Mitch Crane. No, from Joe Freddy. How long before Australia turns into the world depicted in Mad Max, and how Thunderdome and how the Thunderdome get around with restrictions affecting venues? Okay, how did the Thunderdome did get around, except in the future? Okay, here's the problem. With the Thunderdome, 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. Everybody has coronavirus already, so it doesn't matter. So instead of people drowning in their own lungs, they have found a far more entertaining way of 1% of the people there dying, which is, having them murder each other in very nasty ways using chainsaws and things. And that's just how the Australian post-apocalyptic way is. You just have a lot of people with a lot of very nasty improvised weapons killing each other in a dome with people all across the top of that dome. And then that's where the murdering happens. It's tradition of the future that hasn't happened yet. And if Dan Andrews gets everything right, it won't happen. But it's already happening because Scott Morrison's in charge of most of the country, except for this part. Next question, of course, will be Jonathan Stern. What's that alias that Gloria was living under? Well, it was, it's from that song, isn't it? What they used to do is they just spell it. G, L, and so forth. O, R, I, A, and so forth. They would spell it twice. And then you shout it every night and you shout it every day. And those who can't spell don't know who it's talking about. But we know because we can spell. I know you can spell because you wrote it down here. David Pope asks, I can't think of anything to ask. Does it still count as a question? No. Please show your work. Okay. If you can't think of anything to ask, does it still count as a question? So, I cheated. I've got to actually work this out, don't I? I just said it out loud, just blurted it. So I've got to come up with reasoning behind my answer to David Pope. And, well, it shows a question mark at the end of it. Actually, it does. It does count as a question. No, it doesn't. I'll tell you why. If you can't think of anything to ask, then you wouldn't put anything there. David Pope thought, of something to ask, which was, if I can ask anything to ask, does it count as a question? If you can't think of anything to ask. So, it doesn't count as a question because if you couldn't think of anything to ask, then you wouldn't have asked that question. So, no, but that doesn't count as not having anything to ask because you asked something. I showed my work. Last question for the day is from James. Long after the current crisis is over, will we be still using social isolation as an excuse to be antisocial hermits, and will we get away with it? Well, of course, look, we've got to all pull together and, in these trying times. And, well, yes, we can all pull together by leading separate lives. And look, we're all going to be antisocial hermits soon. I mean, okay, we can still get our hair cut in Australia if you take less than 30 minutes per haircut. But I'm not going to do that because I don't want to spread my germs, if I have any, to the hairdresser. So I'm just going to let it grow for a while. See? It's perfectly natural and normal hair, except here, which doesn't have any hair at all. So yes, I mean, it's a perfectly normal explanation, right up until the point there's no more viruses ever left. Ever. No more. Ever. All white viruses just wiped out completely off your hard drive and off the biology of this planet. That will mean we can get Gros Michel bananas again, because that virus would have gone too. So there's an interesting future with nice large bananas that can store easily, and social distancing being a thing of the past, but not yet because the virus has not been wiped out and won't be for some time. So those problems are in the future, unless civilization collapses. I hope this helps. That's it for Tell It Someone for this week. If you would like to ask me a question, then ask me a question in the question asking place below. Or this dovetail question could be in order for those who really, really want to ask a question. I'm dangerously talented, and I somehow don't have a cool sign-off.